number one source, Sports Card Nation. The hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 370 of Sports Card Nation. Part 4. I don't like calling them parts because you don't have to listen to them in order, but the fourth installment of our hobby legal series with attorney Paul Lesko and friend and great guy. Breaks it down for us in simple terms. This is the fourth installment of the previous 3 were the previous 3 weeks. So this will wrap it up for now with Paul. And a couple cases on today's episode. We're going to talk about the Spiegel versus Goldin case, which involves a LeBron RPA and dispute over the patch, whether it's real or not, and the value that was affected by it. And most of you have probably heard about the PSA 9's magically turning into PSA 10s. So we're going to touch on that. It's not in a court case, at least not at this point, but we're going to kind of talk about maybe some of the legal ramifications of that, the optics of it, and all that good stuff. So always fun, and these cases are current, right, and relative. So very important. I want to thank my sponsors, Iron Sports Cards, SCD, Sports Collectors Digest, Hobby Hotline, and Upper Deck. So without further ado, let's start the show. All right, here is the last installment of our hobby legal series with attorney Paul Lesko. And we're going to start off talking about something that actually isn't in court yet. I say yet, but we'll see how this plays out. But most of you have probably heard about the PSA controversy of them buying back cards and they miraculously go from 9's to 10. So we're talking about that, maybe potentially seeing litigation or how the optics of it. You know, we're not done with PSA just yet, Paul. We're not letting them go. Like this one's
like we're
really
picking on them. It's so
well. Listen, or maybe they're picking on themselves.
Sense, right? I mean, that's really the problem. You become the big guy out there. You're going to make some people.
Yeah. So this is really fresh and ongoing, right? We've got now. You even alerted me to the fact that another person has alleged to this, right? That they had their cards graded, they got some 9's, they sold them to PSA, and those 9's with the same cert number. And again, correct me if any of this is inaccurate. The same cert number miraculously got upgraded to 10's now that PSA is in possession of them and reselling them. If this is true, I have friends that work at PSA. I've used them. I use them sometimes even now. If this is true, there's always that thing, right? I'm sure you've heard it. Like, how would PSA ever get knocked off like the number one line in the grading? I think it's a story potentially like this. I'm not saying it is. I'm not making that prediction, but it's something like this where all integrity potentially is lost and they're looked at as the true evil empire. If these allegations in fact turn to be correct and accurate, there's no really reasonable explanation. It's not like they sent that to another grading company and got there. They just changed it in-house. It's like, I know I just threw a lot at you at one time, but go ahead, weigh in here.
And I'll start. I am very cynical when it comes to subjective grading. I can't tell a 9 from a. I cannot. So whenever I have the option, if there's a card out there, if the 10 is out of reach and the 9 is less than a raw card, I'm buying a 9. It's pretty to me. And given the fact that it's no secret if you get a bunch of 9's back, a lot of people will crack them and just resend them back in. and they'll get some 10. I think subjective grading is, I think it's something that everybody accepts, and I don't think we should. But I think the reason it happens is because people aren't submitting cards to be graded because they want a third party to say your card is pretty. They want the 10 so they can sell the card and make more money. So if you're doing business with somebody who gives 10s and they're the most expensive 10s.
Well, I even go a step further. You hit the nail right in the head. But even people who aren't selling it, right, at the moment, they still want the 10, whether it's an ego thing or the fact that maybe they're going to sell it not this year, not next year, but 5 years from now or 10 years. You still want that 10, right? For more than just financial reasons, but financial reasons lead the way. But go ahead. I just had to just chime in there a little bit. But
no. So I mean, thank you. I mean, but it really is. It's just like that. The PSA 10 is what everybody wants. That's the high dollar mark for everything. So until people believe that there's another company whose 10 is better, everyone's going to still keep going back to PSA. And here. So I used to be a defense attorney. I started off my career from my first 5 years. I worked for a large defense firm. So I actually represented the large companies. And you would see, not in this area, but you would see cases kind of like this. And invariably, the way that I always looked at it is sometimes stupidity looks like evil intent from the outside. And that's like when it comes to like fraud cases, that's one of the biggest defenses to fraud cases is we're not evil, we're stupid. And that's kind of like, potentially, I always try to look at things from both sides. And when I look at it here, it's like, well, if I'm getting it right, what PSA says that they did is these cards went for a second internal review. And in that second internal review, somebody graded, I guess, 3 of them or 3 out of the 10 were 9s and became 10s. Well, I think we all know 9s and 10s are pretty interchangeable. And depending on if the grader had an extra cup of coffee and feels good, he's going to give more 10s than 9s because they all look the same. So I don't really see this as like a critique on PSA doing anything bad or doing anything evil. I see it as a critique on people got to get over this big gap between 9s and 10s. I think 9s and 10s should be a lot closer in value than they are. And not like this because they are interchangeable. And I think this is just one of those instances that shows 9s and 10s should be closer. They shouldn't be this far from each. I don't think it's really evilness. I just see because when you're gambling with stuff that's so close, looking at a 9, looking at a 10, and that's why I joked about it like 3 months ago. I think at the National, we need to have a game show where each grading company puts 3 of their graders up and they all grade the same card and we'll see what it comes up. And then we'll send the card through again and see if those same graders can't get the same grades. I guarantee it's all going to be a complete out there for that. So I think it's more of a commentary, not necessarily on PSA doing anything evil or shenanigans. It's just that 9s and 10s should not be so far apart from each when it comes to because they're not very different.
I know we talked a little bit before hitting record. Like I agree with that. Listen, I've graded cards for 30 years now. I've had them next to each other most times. I won't say across the board. Most times the difference is very indiscernible between a 9 and 10. So you're right. And when it comes to, I've bought plenty of 9s and very happy with the amount less I had to pay in relation to paying for 10. But if that's the case, let's, and again, this is just an opinion here, not so much a court opinion. But if they're purchasing a card they've already graded and then reholdering it and with the same cert number, just isn't that sort of like it just feels sort of sleazy.
Yeah, it does. It looks bad. I mean, it does. It has the appearance of impropriety. But again, you could see how the mistakes. If there is this second layer of review, this unfortunate second layer of review, where something can change in between the submitter of the card to saying, "Oh, these are what I got. Okay, I don't want to deal with them. You can buy them back from us," or whatever the proper terminology is. And then it turns out that should have been bought. If you wanted to sell them back, they should have been sold back for more. That looks bad. That looks really bad.
Yeah, the optics are really bad, Paul. Like if this, and like I'm not condoning illegal actions and whatnot. I'm just speaking in like why are you using the same cert number like at that like you just
Yeah.
this is why we're at where again I'm not trying to say you do that in the first place, but if you're doing that and you're using the same cert number, now what goes from like you're just like you stepped in it
Yeah.
yourself and
Yeah,
like
and
it just
I'm unclear as to why there is a secondary review. I mean, it just seems like, okay, you've had the review for the card. That's isn't it? Aren't you done? Aren't you done at that point? I mean, I could see if somebody's, cracked it out
you're
of the
in a
slab
way
and
you're
resubmit.
throwing yourself under the bus like our graders didn't grade that well, so we're doing it again.
Yeah,
Like
exactly. Yeah,
you're saying
there's
what
a problem there somewhere.
the standard you prop yourself up on, you're like undercutting yourself if that's the case. So like
Yep.
it'll be interesting. Now, are these going to court or are these just people screaming from the mountaintop?
Yeah, these are people just screaming from the mountaintops because I believe at
Yeah.
least the first person, I think he's been made whole or something. I think PSA's made him
Okay.
right somehow. I don't know if there's a confidentiality agreement or something there. There were some funny tweets out there about it, so I think that one's been resolved. So
Okay.
I don't know if there will be a court case. It's one of those things that will be difficult to show because I think he just got lucky with looking at certain numbers, later seeing where the certain numbers popped up with higher grades. Not many people are going to do that. Most people, if I
A
submitted 100
lot. Well,
cards, I got
Paul, there's a lot of this. You're the hobby lawyer. There's a lot of hobby detectives. Let me put
that's
it
right.
this way: there's probably more hobby detectives than hobby lawyers. I think that's
Oh,
a
without a doubt.
assumption.
So yeah, so maybe
To
the hobby detectives have been unleashed. We'll see what else is out there.
Time for a quick break, but we'll be right back.
For nearly 50 years, Sports Collectors Digest has been the voice of the hobby, bringing you comprehensive coverage of the sports collectible industry. From industry news, auction results, market analysis, and in-depth stories about collectors and their collections, Sports Collectors Digest has everything you need to know about the hobby. SCD is also your leading source for listings of sports collectible dealers, card shops, card shows, and the latest from the industry's top companies. To check out all the latest news or to subscribe to the hobby's oldest magazine, visit sportscollectorsdigest.com or call 1-800-829-5561.
Thanks for sticking with us. Let's return to the show.
I don't know how much time you want to spend on this. We can do kind of the Cliff Notes version. I know you've been on a bit, and this is not necessarily. I don't know as much about this as the other ones. Self-disclosure.
Mhm.
But the Spiegels versus Goldin and the LeBron RPA. Again, I'm going to acquiesce to your time here, but we'll kind of close on this case.
Sure.
And just kind of fill in. I know a little bit, but in comparison to these other cases, not as much.
And this is another case that really interests me as a trial attorney because this is one of those ones that it will turn on a witness. So this case is about a Goldin the Spiegels consigned a LeBron RPA with Goldin auction, and during the auction, card porn and some other people had brought up issue with the card. They alleged that the patch in the card was not authentic. Some of these issues had been out there beforehand, but nobody really, it wasn't to the point of, hey, we're not going to sell the card. So the Spiegels, who were the people that consigned the card with the Goldins, they had a letter of, I'm going to call it a letter of authenticity from Upper Deck saying that the card is legitimate. Well, during the auction itself, the Goldins alleged that they talked to a Upper Deck employee, and that individual said, "Hey, I'm the one that wrote the letter." That letter actually only authenticated the card, not the patch itself. So that way I cannot stand behind the patch. And so he says, because of that, Goldin says, because of that, I ended The Spiegels, on the other hand, are saying, well, this is nonsense because during the course of this case, we deposed Upper Deck, and Upper Deck still says they stand behind the original letter of authenticity. Now, they didn't do anything else to investigate the card or anything, it appears, but they're still standing behind the letter of authenticity. So this case it's really going to turn on, not only is the card authentic or is the patch of the card authentic or not, but when the original Upper Deck letter was created, was written by this Upper Deck employee, what did he say was authentic? What is, and what currently he's saying is authentic, and what is Upper Deck saying is authentic. So this is an entire case that's going to turn on that witness's testimony. And that's the greatest type of case to not be involved with, to actually watch, because it's going to be a nerve-wracking case. You never know what the other side is going to say. But yeah, if they could live stream that case, if they could put it live on YouTube, so
Pay per view.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, really, that's what they should put. The Goldins and the Spiegels should pay for this trial to be televised, and then they cut the money in half, and it'll probably make up for in their attorney's fees in the case. But it'll be some phenomenal. I think I'm looking forward to the lawyers on both sides, the ones that are going to try and build him up as a witness, and the ones that are going to try and tear him down as it's going to be phenomenal lawyer play. And that
go ahead.
So where the case is right now is the judge is deciding, is there sufficient facts in dispute that it should go to trial? That's where we are right now. The judge is getting ready to say, are we going to have a trial or not? And I think because there's so many facts that are in dispute, and only the jury can determine credibility of witnesses, and if there's a factual dispute, which side wins, I think this case is ripe to go to the jury. And I really, really hope we have a jury trial for this.
So Goldin ended the auction and then sent the card back to Spiegel. So they have the card. They're
Correct.
Just mad that the auction didn't go to full term.
Correct. And they're also alleging that when the auction ended, Ken posted on Instagram that, he's ending the auction, and he thanked Card Porn and other people for pointing out that there were issues with the card. They're alleging that act, the cancellation of the auction, and then the Instagram post have forever damaged the value of this card. So basically, this card, no matter what, has an asterisk. It's why Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire are not going to get into the Hall of Fame anytime soon. They have asterisks. This card has an asterisk. So Goldins needs to pay us the difference in the value of it. And then the Goldins have a counter lawsuit saying, hey, you knew there were issues with this card. You didn't tell us about it. We wasted all this time on this auction. You actually owe us money for it. So that's why I call the case Spiegels versus the Goldins versus the.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, what happens. And, Card Porn had other issues post that as well that doesn't bode well for them, but that's a show in itself. So we won't get into that.
Exactly.
But Paul, I always appreciate you coming on. I always learn something, always, and I feel like I've even know more about a lot of these cases. And again, I sound like a broken record here, but it's true, right? Regardless of how in the litigation you are or aren't, right? These are important cases to the hobby for in the moment, and for what happens, next year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now. One last kind of question, not a litigation. With Fanatics taking over a majority of the licensing here now, do you think we'll see? Do you think that bodes for more litigation, or not necessarily? Just is what it is.
I think the bigger you are, the more successful you are, the bigger of a target you have on you. So it's just how the game is played. So I hope Fanatics is continually increasing their litigation department's budget because they're just going to need it, because no matter what, trading cards, the value of the market for trading cards has just skyrocketed. It keeps going up. There's so much money involved. When you have this much money involved, some people are going to just naturally be hurt. They're going to look for somebody to blame. And Fanatics has the biggest dollar sign attached to it. So I think, whoever was in charge of everything, if this was Panini, you could see them getting forward. But just because they're the biggest ones out there, if whatever goes wrong, it's Fanatics' fault. We should bring a lawsuit. So.
Yeah. Well, listen, we won't wait as long between having you on, and at this rate with court cases, we probably wouldn't be able to wait that long, even if we wanted to. Again, I'll put Paul's social media handles in the show notes. He breaks this. It's one thing to hear it, verbally, but he does a great job even on social media, breaking it down and in terms that laymen like myself can understand and get the gist of what's at stake and what's going on and how this tends to work. And the fact that you're in that profession and you know how this works or what options each side may have or not have any longer, I think that's a great aspect and a great thing you bring to that. And so if you're not following Paul already, go do that, especially if you like this sort of thing as I do. Again, I'm very appreciative, Paul. You're sharing some of those insight and knowledge and, letting people know what's going on sort of behind closed doors, if you will, of the hobby. Not on the show floor necessarily, but in the back rooms,
Right,
as I say. I always give the guests kind of the last word. Give out those social medias too for those listening or anything else you want to share. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, and it's every day before I start my work, I check all the dockets that are out there for the hobby, and I always tweet about it. I try to make it easily understandable, and I at least try to make it funny too. So if you're on the Twitters, I'm at Paul_Lesko. Give me a follow. Hopefully, learn something new, but at a minimum, you'll see lawyers in a different light.
Yep, no doubt. And so there you go. Thanks, Paul, as always.
Thanks, John, for having me on. This was fun.
That wraps up our legal series with Paul Lesko. Always great having him on. He breaks it down in ways that, everybody can understand rather than having to speak legalese. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but, not everyone does. And again, whether these cases, you're halfway interested or not, right, they do have a direct bearing on what the future of the hobby might entail. And I think they were very important. I did them in 4 installments just to keep the length short. So even if it wasn't your cup of tea at the length that each episode was, I think it made it more consumable. Let me know what you think. We're going to have Paul back on somewhere down the line, maybe with some new cases and updates. I joked with him when I was younger, I wanted to be a lawyer, and then I heard how long you got to go to school for it, and so much for that. So you get me on this podcast instead, and my kids get me in the classroom instead. But all joking aside, let me know what you thought of the 4 installments and what you thought of it, and we'll do them again down the line somewhere. So let's get to the Hobbies the People announcer of the week and wrap up this week's episode.
Time for our Hobby is the People announcer of the week.
Sup everyone, it's Brody the Kid. Always remember, the hobby is the people. Peace out.
If you'd like to be the Hobby is the People announcer of the week, do a WAV or MP3 file and send it to sportscardnationpc@gmail.com.